My name is Jacqueline Smith, and I'm 72.
Community Narratives, Christiansburg Institute. I'm trying to figure out experiences at Christiansburg Institute so I can better design for it. So we'll go ahead and get started. First question. What landmarks do you remember from Christiansburg Institute?
Oh, I remember quite a few of the buildings. There was the library, which also housed the principal's office.
They were in the same space?
Yes. And then there was, I think, the long building had classrooms in it. And we had a gymnasium.
Was that connected to the building?
It wasn't. It was across the street from the long building.
Okay.
And down from the gymnasium was the home economics department, which was actually a house. And a little ways from there was another house that they housed the barbering and cosmetology.
So
that might be all.
That's helpful. Then we'll go to the second question.
Okay.
Are there any memorable, sacred, or community spaces that you recall from the Institute that was important to you? And if so, why?
I would say the gymnasium. And mostly because it was a kind of like a gathering place. It's where you could meet your friends, and we didn't have a cafeteria, so you stood in the hallways where the lockers were and had your lunch. But it was a gathering place. It's where you got together with your friends and classmates. And
did you bring your own lunches in then, or
yes, one year they did supply lunches, but I don't think it worked out very well.
So they kind of stopped it.
So it kind of ended. And that may have been my last year there.
Mm-hmm.
Or next to the last year. But for the most part, everybody had to bring their own lunches.
Okay.
Because lunches were not supplied.
That makes sense. What do you consider makes a community space? And that's very open-ended.
That is a hard question. Community space would be a place where the community could get together.
Was there certain things that you think as a community that you all would do that kind of helped you define that this is our space?
Well, we have a reunion every year. And if we had our own building, I think a lot of people would love that. As it is, we have to look for places to hold the venue, and it can get expensive, very expensive.
That makes sense. That's kind of frustrating.
Yes.
Or it can be. Next. Was there any part of Christiansburg Institute that symbolized community to you as a student? And how about now as you reflect on the space?
Again, that would have been the gymnasium. We had classrooms in the gymnasium, but...
Was it everyday classes? Or not every day, but
Yes. Okay. I think it's where they taught the shop.
Which shop?
Woodworking and stuff.
Okay. So you had all that the works.
Yeah, and that's where the choir room was. That's where the lockers were when you got ready for gym. Also, that's where I had world history and government. So there were classrooms in that building also.
Is that typically, I guess, where you'd have graduations, or was that?
Yes.
Or is that outside?
The gymnasium and the auditorium were pretty much the same room.
Okay. If you could envision any use of the current site, what would it be?
Again, the community center, and maybe even a restaurant that would be able to cater the reunion when we have it, because again, that is very expensive at the venues that people have to go to in order to attend the reunions.
If the Institute had never closed, what do you think it would be like now?
I actually think that with integration, those buildings would stand empty unless they had turned it into, for instance, a secondary school, like a middle school or even the elementary school. But I honestly think it would have, with integration, those buildings would have remained empty. They could have turned the economics building and the barber building into houses for people.
Mm-hmm.
As it is, I think now they've torn them down. A lot of things have been torn down. But I think the buildings would have stood empty.
I think that's all the questions. I have a couple little small things to ask. I know that green and yellow were your colors, school colors.
Green and gold.
Green and gold, sorry. Green and gold.
Green and gold, baby.
Were there any other things, like visuals that you would say would remind you of Christiansburg Institute? And I know there's a tiger.
I was going to say, we were the Tigers.
And all the buildings were brick?
Yeah, except for the economics building and the cosmetology building. All of them were brick. Yeah, they were all brick. Yeah.
Was there like any parking lots or anything? So I know you just kind of came up to the school. Or you just kind of arrived.
You know, I rode the school bus. I don't think there were any students that drove cars like they do in schools now. We all had to ride the school bus. So, except for the parking lot for the school buses, I don't believe there were any.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Christiansburg Institute or your time there?
Not really. I enjoyed my time there. Was very disappointed that I couldn't graduate from there.
Because you graduated a year prior.
I graduated the year that it closed. But Rapid City did not supply transportation for any student that wanted to continue to go to Christiansburg Institute. It was the only place that did not supply.
So it technically stayed open a second
year. It closed in 1966. I graduated in 1966.
Oh, okay.
But as I said, Rapid did not supply transportation like all the other localities did. Pulaski did, Blacksburg did, Christiansburg did, but Rapid did not supply transportation for the students that wanted to stay. And I mean, I lived across the street from the bus stop. I could have
just jumped on
the bus, but I was on the wrong side of the highway. So I had to go to Rapid High, which wasn't a bad thing, but I would have rather graduated from the school that I had already continued 4 years in.
That makes sense. That was where all your experiences were.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, thank you for interviewing. I appreciate your time, and thank you for completing the interview. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.